So for the elasticized cuff, you will need to cut out a puff sleeve. You don't need to cut any of these notches or anything. And then with your puff sleeve, you will overlock the side seams here and here separately, stitch them together and iron them open. So it will look like this. So that is your sleeve that's been joined at the side seam. I'm just going to turn it so it's the right way around. Other thing you need is a piece of elastic that's about 1 centimeter wide, and I've cut this so it's about 2/3 of the width of the bottom of the sleeve. Okay, so I've actually cut it about here. Now if you were to do this on your own design, you would need whatever the width of your elastic. So for us it's about 1 centimeter. That's how much allowance you would have on the bottom of your sleeve pattern for the sleeve hem. Okay, now to prep our sleeve, we've got our seam already and it's ironed open. And at the bottom of the sleeve, we know it's the bottom because it's straight, we're going to pinch it at that seam and lay it flat so we get the halfway point here. Just finger press that, and I'm going to cut a teeny tiny triangle out of that to create a notch which indicates the halfway point of the sleeve hem. Now with my elastic, I need to join my elastic. So I'm going to, making sure there's no twists, just pop that over the other end, and I'm just going to do a reverse stitch back and forth here. Can be a little bit tricky, but to get it lined up. But what I did is I put my needle in before I put my foot down, and that held the two ends together. Just back and forth a few times so it stays attached. Don't overlap these ends too much because you'll lose too much elastic doing that. And then just cut your ends. Now next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark the halfway point of our elastic. So at the seam we've created there, we just need to fold it. And then with that fold there and a lead pencil, we can mark that halfway point. Okay, so now we're ready to attach this to our sleeve. So we pop our sleeve hem under the machine, and we're going to line up our elastic hem with that sleeve seam here. And I'm just going to put the foot down, so it's going to stitch in the middle of that elastic. Now to begin with, I'm just going to do a little reverse stitch. And make sure your needle's out, because when you start to pull the elastic you may snap the needle. Now you find the halfway point on the elastic, which is here, and then you're going to line that up with that notch showing the halfway point there. Pinch that together, and then you need to stretch the elastic so it fits in here. See that? So you can see that I need to stretch the elastic so it fits all the way in here. So I'm going to pull that like that. And then I'm going to, it's a little bit hard to get moving first, so I'm just going to pull it through past that thick section and then re-pinch it together at those points. And I'm just stitching along the middle of that elastic, holding it nice and tight, and making sure this point here, they will line up. When I get to here, all I have to do is pull it and make sure I hold it so it sits lined up with my notch, and then stitch along the middle. And then the rest of the way, pull your elastic so it's nice and evenly elasticized. And then again, just do a little reverse stitch where you started. So that's my elastic in my cuff. Now what I'm going to do is stretch it out and overlock that edge. So we'll do that now. So in order to do this, so the right side of the overlocking stitch, which is this side, is on that side, I need to turn that inside out. So, and then to get it under, make sure your needles are up. I'm going to stretch it, lift up the presser foot, pop it under and put the presser foot down. And the whole way that I do this, I need to stretch it and make sure I'm not cutting anything, especially not the elastic. So do a little bit, readjust, and then stretch that elastic back out. Almost at the end. So where you started, just re-stitch a couple stitches over, bring your needles up, lift the foot up, pull your work out, and then stitch, leaving a nice long tail. And then we'll go back to the machine and top stitch it. Now to top stitch, we're going to turn it back the right way. Now if you weren't happy with that amount of elasticization, what's the word? Elasticization? I don't know, I think I'm making that up. If you want that to be more elasticized, you just cut a smaller length of elastic. Because stitching and these processes we're doing will actually stretch out the elastic a little bit. Alright, I'm just going to cut my threads. And then back to my sewing machine, and I'm going to be folding this up and stitching along the edge here. So nice and close to the edge of the fabric, and you need to make sure you pull this so that elastic fold is right on the edge of the elastic. And you just stop and readjust, making sure you're stretching it as you go. And before I get to the end, I'm just going to trim my threads. Pull up that last bit, making sure it's nice and folded right on the edge of the elastic. And then do a little reverse stitch on top of where I started. Okay, so that is my little elasticized cuff. So like I said, you can do this a lot tighter. It just makes it a little bit harder to sew because you're stretching it more. But that's a really nice, neat finish to do for your blouse.